A man in his 50s opens a forgotten box in the attic. Inside it is an old leather notebook he kept when he was 17. The pages are yellowed, but the words still cut deep. The first sentence hits him like a confession. It reads, "Don't live like Dad. Live real. Even if it means being poor, even if it means being alone, just don't betray yourself." He stares at the page in silence, because now, decades later, he is living exactly like the man he once swore he would never become. Safe, stable, silent. A man with a respectable life and a quiet sadness that never leaves. He didn't fail. He did everything right. College, career, family, retirement plan, socially accepted, emotionally empty. He never chose the wrong path. He just never chose at all. He followed the path that was handed to him. But deep down, a different life still lingers, not as memory, but as regret. And it's not just him. This quiet disappointment has become global. You can feel it when you talk to people in their 40s and 50s. Not angry, not bitter, just number. They laugh at parties, they show up for work, they raise their children, and yet, behind their eyes, something is missing. According to a global survey by Ipsos in 2022, 67% of adults around the world said they feel disconnected from their own lives. Not unhappy, not depressed, just disconnected. They say things like, "I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing anymore," or "Life is just happening and I'm just there." They're not broken, they're not lost. They're just quietly haunted by the possibility that life was supposed to feel different. And the reason runs deeper than individual failure. It's not about making the wrong decision. It's about never being taught how to make a real one. Because no one teaches you how to live. They only teach you how to function. You're taught how to succeed, how to please others, how to blend in, but not how to listen to the voice inside you that wants something more. From an early age, you are trained to be agreeable, to chase goals that sound respectable, to trade authenticity for approval, and to call that maturity. You learn that being responsible is more important than being alive, that following the system is safer than following your soul. So you grow up, you get the job, you play the part, and you wake up one day not knowing who you are without the routine. You become a husband, a provider, a leader at work. But somewhere between the meetings, the bills, and the milestones, you lose the man you once promised you would become. And maybe you even forget he existed, until something stirs, a question, a line from a notebook, a memory, something small, something true. And you realize the greatest tragedy is not that you failed. The real tragedy is that you were never allowed to choose. You were just handed a script, and you played the role well. But the longer you perform it, the further you drift from the person you were meant to be. This isn't just a personal issue, it's structural, it's cultural, it's generational. Because if more than 2/3 of the adult population worldwide feels disconnected from their own lives, then this is not just about individuals making bad choices. This is about a system that rewards obedience over authenticity, that praises external success while ignoring inner truth, that makes it easy to survive, but difficult to live. And the worst part is, you probably didn't even notice it happening, because it all felt so normal. Until one day, you look at your life, and it feels like someone else's. This video isn't going to tell you what you should do. It won't give you a 5-step plan. It won't sell you a lifestyle. It will do something much harder. It will ask you to face a question you've been avoiding for years. If you had to choose again, would you dare live differently? Not someday, not hypothetically, but now. Because the truth is, you don't need a second life. You just need to stop betraying this one. The question is not, do you have time left? You do. The real question is, do you have the courage to stop continuing a life that was never really yours? This is where the story begins, not with another goal, but with a different kind of decision. So ask yourself now, quietly, seriously, without flinching, if I had to choose again, would I finally dare to live differently? You didn't wake up one day and say, I want a life that feels scripted. You didn't choose to feel numb. You didn't plan to forget yourself, but it happened. Quietly, slowly, without a fight, because the system never asks for permission. It simply offers rewards, titles, approval, applause. And most people accept the trade, not because they are weak, but because they are told it's noble. You didn't choose this life. You just stopped resisting it, not with surrender, but with silence. You became what the world praises: a responsible man, a good provider, a patient husband, a stable adult. They called you strong when you stopped dreaming. They called you wise when you gave up your fire. They said, he's doing the right thing. But the right thing slowly stole your name. Seneca once said, no one took your life. You gave it away. You gave it in small pieces, in postponed plans, in silent compromise, in one more meeting, one more favor, one more month of pretending this is what you wanted. And the system made it easy. It didn't need chains. It only needed labels. The mature one, the dependable one, the real man. What it never wanted you to be was free, because a free man is inconvenient, unpredictable, unafraid to walk away, and the system fears what it cannot control, so it dressed your cage in compliments. It convinced you that discipline means dullness, that responsibility means resignation, that loyalty means silence, and it worked, not through violence, but through approval. The system doesn't shoot you, it drains you, one email, one task, one bill at a time, until you forget what it ever meant to be alive. Let's be honest, you say you chose this life, but did you? Or did you choose not to fight it? Did you really choose your job? Or did you choose stability because fear whispered louder than your dream? Did you really choose your routine? Or did you inherit it like a uniform that was already waiting on your shoulders? You thought you had freedom, but most of your choices came pre-approved, pre-filtered, predefined. Seneca called this spiritual slavery, living as if you're immortal while acting like you don't deserve a real life, and you're not alone. According to Gallup's 2023 global survey, 85% of workers worldwide say their job brings them no meaning, no growth, no connection. That's over 6 billion people. 6 billion men and women who wake up each morning to live a life they quietly resent. A life that looks fine but feels empty. They clock in, they nod, they contribute, they survive, but they do not live. Because the system doesn't reward the real you. It rewards your compliance. And if you keep following the script, you will die having played the part, without ever knowing the actor. So, what is the enemy here? It's not your boss, not your government, not your bills. It's the version of you that thinks this is all there is. It's the voice that says, you're too old to change, you have too much to lose, you should be grateful. That voice is not your conscience, it's your conditioning, and it has one job, to keep you loyal to a life that keeps you small. But here's the truth. You were not born to be stable. You were not born to be safe. You were born to be awake. And the moment you remember that, the system loses. You may not be able to burn it down, but you can stop feeding it with your silence. You can start asking dangerous questions. You can start refusing quiet despair. You can choose again. And that doesn't mean quitting your job tomorrow. It doesn't mean walking away from your family. It means reclaiming one simple thing, your ownership of this life. No more borrowed goals, no more automatic days, no more applause for living as someone else. Because now you know. You were never lazy, you were never weak, you were just told that comfort is better than truth, but you don't have to believe that anymore. You can trade comfort for clarity, you can trade safety for soul, you can stop surviving and start living on your own terms. The question is, Will you? The system didn't just take your time. It took something far more sacred, your unlived life. And Carl Jung warned us, it never truly disappears. It waits, in silence, in shadows, in symptoms. What you rejected in youth will return in adulthood, but not as dreams. It returns as depression, as midlife numbness, as that slow, unspoken panic that whispers, I don't know who I am anymore. That is not weakness. It's your soul trying to break the surface. Jung called it the return of the real self, the part of you you abandoned, the version of you that once burned with clarity before you learned to please and perform. And make no mistake, you didn't lose that version, you killed it. You looked at your joy, your longing, your dream, and you called it unrealistic. You looked at your hunger for freedom, and you called it immature. And slowly, with every decision to be practical, you buried the one part of you that was truly alive. You didn't bury it in a grave. You buried it under responsibility, under image, under approval. And you did it so well, you forgot it was ever there, until now. Now you feel the cracks, the dissonance, the ache that won't go away. That is not a midlife crisis. It's a resurrection. It's not a breakdown. It's a breakthrough, trying to force its way through the walls you built. Jung said this moment is not the end. It's a doorway, but only if you're willing to walk through it. And that requires something terrifying, not courage, not strength, but the willingness to confront the truth, that the life you built was not built for you. Jung divided life into two halves. The first half is where you build your identity. You form a persona, a mask that helps you function in society. You learn the rules. You play the game. You earn praise for being who they need you to be. But the second half is where you must tear that mask off. You must unlearn. You must return. You must stop performing and start becoming. Most people never do. They cling to the first half of life like it's all they have. They keep growing their ego, their image, their social armor, while their soul remains unfed. They call it maturity. They call it wisdom. But really, it's fear. Fear of admitting that the life they fought so hard to build was never theirs to begin with. This is why men in midlife often feel like strangers in their own skin, not because they've failed, but because they've outgrown the mask and don't know what's underneath. And what's underneath is the boy they once were, the one who dreamed freely, who created without purpose, who felt something sacred and alive inside him before the world trained it out. You remember that boy? He wasn't foolish. He wasn't naive. He was honest. He was whole. He was you, before you betrayed yourself to survive. Now he's knocking, not to shame you, but to invite you back to the unlived life, back to the road you abandoned because it didn't fit someone else's definition of success. That road is still there. It never left. It's waiting, just like your real self has been. Not to start over, but to begin for the first time. So ask yourself, if the dreams of your youth still burn in silence, if your soul still aches for something more, if your pain is trying to wake you up, then maybe you haven't failed. Maybe you've simply reached the doorway Jung described. The moment when the self you killed comes back as fate and asks you one last time, will you live me now? Maybe the real reason you haven't changed isn't because it's too late, but because you've been telling yourself for decades, not yet, not now, maybe later. Seneca called this the most dangerous lie a man tells himself, the lie of someday, because someday never comes. It stretches endlessly in front of you, always close enough to believe in, but never close enough to touch. You've said after the promotion, then after the kids grow up, then after this project, then after I retire. But look around. That life you were preparing to live, has it arrived? Or have you spent all your preparation on a future that never intended to show up? Seneca warned, people live as if life will grant them a second round. as if time is stored somewhere, waiting patiently to be claimed once things settle down. But life doesn't wait. It doesn't pause. It doesn't rewind. It leaks, minute by minute, into emails you didn't need to send, conversations you didn't want to have, and routines you never questioned. And the saddest part? You kept telling yourself it's just temporary. But the temporary became your permanent. And now, here you are, not out of time, but out of excuses. You say you're too busy to live differently, but who exactly is using your time? Because it's not your calendar that owns you. It's your fear. The fear of rocking the boat. The fear of disappointing others. The fear of what might happen if you actually chose yourself. So you wait. And while you wait, time keeps moving. And here's the tragedy Seneca saw clearly. Time doesn't just pass. It disappears into things that don't matter. You don't notice it vanishing because you're busy. But busy is often just a mask for avoidance. Avoidance of the inner voice that keeps asking, is this really it? And by the time that voice grows loud enough to hear, you're already deep into your 50s. Your 60s, looking back with a strange ache, not because you didn't do enough, but because you never truly began. You spent your best years warming up for a performance that never happened. Bronnie Ware, an Australian nurse who cared for dying patients, documented the top 5 regrets of the dying. And the number 1 regret? I wish I had lived a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. That was the voice of men and women who waited for the right time to be real. But the right time never arrived. And now they're whispering that truth from their final bed. Let that sink in. 76% of people in their final days don't regret failure. They regret inaction. They regret waiting. They didn't want more money or more status. They wanted to go back and say, I will live for me. I will choose what's true, even if it's messy, even if it scares me. But by then, they could only whisper it to nurses, to ceilings, to God. So what about you? How many more years are you willing to sacrifice to keep the illusion of safety alive? How long will you postpone the only life that actually belongs to you? You don't need more motivation. You need honesty. You need to admit that someday isn't a plan. It's a prison. And if you're still breathing, you still have time. But the window is shrinking. And the longer you wait to begin, the heavier the regret will become. Seneca believed that preparing for death isn't about becoming morbid. It's about becoming awake. Because only the man who faces the end knows how to value the day. So here's the question. Do you want to wait until your final days to realize you never lived a single one fully? Or will you finally choose to stop rehearsing and start becoming? Because this isn't about how much time you have. It's about what you do with the time you still do. At some point in every man's life, the path splits. There are no signs, no loud warnings, no final deadlines. Just a quiet moment when you realize something must change. Or nothing ever will. And in that moment, there are only 2 doors. The first door leads you back to everything that feels familiar, predictable, safe. It's the life you've already lived, polished, performed, approved by everyone but you. It's the life where you keep showing up, keep pleasing, keep achieving, but your soul stays asleep. Jung called this the path of repetition. Living out the same role you crafted in the first half of life, long after it stopped fitting. It's the role of the provider, the pleaser, the achiever, the man who always has it together. But it's also the man who quietly withers, because to cling to that identity forever is to die while still breathing. The second door is different. It doesn't look safe, it looks honest. It leads somewhere unfamiliar. Not back to your youth, but forward into your truth. It's the path where you let go of who the world told you to be and start becoming who you were always meant to be. Jung called this the journey of individuation, not the search for success, not self-improvement, but self-recovery. The act of shedding masks, of breaking the character, of returning to your original self, the one buried beneath a lifetime of performance. And this path is not loud. It doesn't ask you to run. It asks you to listen, to unlearn, to walk away from the applause and into your own silence. Seneca had a different way of saying it. He called it preparing for death, but not in fear, in awareness. He believed the man who prepares for death each day is the only man who truly knows how to live. Because once you face the end, you stop wasting your life on anything that isn't real. You stop delaying, you stop pleasing, you stop waiting for permission. You begin, not with noise, but with intent. And the most radical part, you don't have to change your entire life. You don't need to blow everything up. You only have to stop living a life that was never yours. That alone is revolution. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering someone old, someone you left behind to become acceptable. And when you start listening to that voice again, you begin to feel something rare. Not excitement, but alignment. You start making choices that don't need applause, that don't win approval, but feel unmistakably true. And that feeling is what most men spend a lifetime chasing in all the wrong places. So here you are. 2 doors, 2 futures. One leads to comfort and slow death. The other leads to truth and unknown life. And no one can open either door for you. Not your partner, not your children, not your therapist, not your heroes. Only you, because no one else knows the sound of your soul when it stops pretending. You don't need a sign, or a breakdown, or a permission slip. You just need one decision: to stop continuing the life that almost worked, but never really did. And to start risking a life that doesn't guarantee success, but might just give you back your soul. And yes, it will feel like betrayal, because the first thing you must betray is the old version of you. The obedient one, the stable one, the one who played the role too well. But that's the price of freedom. You don't get to keep the mask and find yourself at the same time. You must leave the role to return to the man who still breathes, still aches, still dares. So ask yourself now, which door have you been standing in front of? How long have you been staring at it? And what are you really waiting for? The world to give you permission? It won't. A sign that it's safe? It never is. Someone to walk through it for you? No one will. Because this is your life, and this moment is yours to claim. The door is here. The key is in your hand. The only question left is, will you open it? So maybe this is not about starting over. Maybe it never was. Maybe it's about stopping the slow, polite death you've been calling a life. Because you don't need more time. You need to stop wasting the time you still have. You don't need another chance. You need to stop abandoning the one you're in. And no, you can't go back. You can't rewrite the last 10, 20, 30 years. But you can decide that from this moment forward, you will no longer betray yourself. It starts with a pause, a breath, a sentence. One man, 57 years old, sits at his kitchen table. His hands shake slightly as he opens a dusty journal he once filled with teenage fire. The same journal he buried in a box when life demanded he become a man. Now for the first time in decades, he opens to a blank page. He writes just one line. Day 1, I don't know how to live, but I know I won't live like this anymore. That's it. No goals, no 5-year plan, no audience. Just a whisper from his soul finally reaching the surface. Because that's what it means to reclaim your life. Not to shout louder, but to listen deeper. To feel the pulse of something ancient within you that still wants to begin. And it doesn't matter how old you are. If you are breathing, you are not finished. If you are breathing, you are not stuck. If you are breathing, then today is not the end. It is the first day you stop dying. But be warned, the world will not celebrate this decision. It will not welcome your awakening with open arms. Because a man who lives by truth disturbs every system built on compliance. People will say you've changed, that you're selfish, that you're reckless. They'll tell you to be grateful, to be realistic, to be normal. But what they're really saying is stay asleep, stay quiet, stay where we can understand you. And that's when you'll know you're doing it right. You'll begin to feel lighter, not because life got easier, but because you're no longer carrying the weight of who you're not. You'll start choosing differently, not to impress, but to align. You'll lose some people, you'll lose some status, but what you gain will feel like oxygen. Because for the first time, you'll look in the mirror and recognize the man staring back. Not perfect, not complete, but real. And maybe that's the entire point. Not to live again, not to escape regret, not to erase the past, but to finally become the man you would have been had you never abandoned yourself, and to give the rest of your life to him, to his voice, his truth, his unfinished dreams, even if no one claps, even if no one understands, because the life that feels real is the one worth living, even if you arrive late. You don't need to start over, you just need to stop dying, in your choices, in your silence, in the life you agreed to but never actually wanted. You still have time, not to be young, but to be whole, not to impress, but to feel, not to live like others expect, but to die knowing you finally lived. So take one step, any step. It doesn't have to be dramatic, just honest. Close a door that never fit. Say no to one thing that drains you. Say yes to one thing that stirs you. Then say it again tomorrow and the next day, until your life begins to reflect what your soul always knew, that you were never lost, just buried. And now we return to the only question that matters, the one that found you in the silence, the one that never stopped knocking, the one that might save what's left. If you had to choose again, would you finally dare to live differently?